Welcome to When Gen X Ruled the Multiplex, in which I tackle the films that were important to the development of those of us who are members of Generation X. It's difficult to think of any film that was more tailor-made to the tastes of the MTV generation than 1984's Purple Rain. Purple Rain changed the public perception of Prince from a rising pop and funk phenomenon into one of the greatest performers the world has ever known. Purple Rain was directed by Albert Magnoli in his feature debut. He'd go on to direct American Anthem and did uncredited work completing Tango and Cash after the original director was fired by producers before the end of filming. Purple Rain's script was written by Magnoli and prolific television writer William Blinn, who wrote and produced Fame, Eight is Enough, Starsky and Hutch, and other shows. Made for a budget of around $7 million, Purple Rain far exceeded the expectations of the studio that financed it, Warner Brothers, by cleaning up at the box office and becoming a key piece of 80s pop culture history. Purple Rain is a showcase for Minneapolis-born musician Prince, who plays a thinly disguised version of himself. In fact, with a few exceptions, most of the cast members are essentially playing themselves, which makes it very easy to remember character names. At the time of the film, Prince already had an impressive body of work, including the hit album 1999, which was released in 1982. His sixth album was the soundtrack to Purple Rain, made with his band, The Revolution, the members of which play key parts in the film. Purple Rain hit #1 on the Billboard charts, went multi-platinum, and spawned 4 radio-friendly top 10 singles. The title track, plus When Doves Cry, Let's Go Crazy, and I Would Die For You. The film opens at the slick and stylish club First Avenue in Minneapolis, where The Revolution, headed up by Prince, who for the purposes of this film is known simply as The Kid, take the stage and launch into Let's Go Crazy. Purple Rain is largely comprised of performance scenes, all of which are pretty amazing. Apart from being a crazily talented songwriter and musician, Prince could also put on a show like few others in history. A taxicab arrives at the club, and a beautiful young woman named Apollonia slips out to avoid paying her cab fare. Apollonia is played by Apollonia Kotero, who, prior to being cast in Purple Rain, acted under the name Patty Kotero. At Prince's suggestion, she began using her middle name professionally. Originally, Prince's protege Vanity, whom we've already seen in Never Too Young to Die, was set to star in Purple Rain. She dropped out so she could play Mary Magdalene in Martin Scorsese's The Last Temptation of Christ, which never happened. That production went into turnaround for several years, and by the time it was finally released in 1988, Barbara Hershey had replaced Vanity in the cast. Apollonia also replaced Vanity as the lead singer of the Prince-managed girl group Vanity 6, which was renamed Apollonia 6. The First Avenue Club has 3 house bands. Along with The Revolution, there's the Modernaires, fronted by Des Dickerson, a former guitarist with The Revolution, and The Time, fronted by Morris Day, a former high school classmate of Prince's. Prince created The Time, much as he created Vanity 6, because his Warner Brothers contract gave him the power to create and produce other acts for the label. Throughout their working relationship, Prince and Morris Day were fierce rivals as well as close friends, and in Purple Rain, Morris plays the film's primary villain, an exaggerated comedic version of himself. Morris arrives at the club chauffeured by his bodyguard and all-purpose yes-man Jerome, played by Jerome Benton. When Morris steps out of the car, Jerome immediately holds up a mirror so Morris can check out how fine he looks. Jerome and his mirror is a pretty great running gag throughout the film, and is apparently based on a real-life incident, in which Morris, while performing with The Time, asked for a mirror mid-performance, and Jerome promptly ripped one off the wall of the men's room and presented it to him on stage. In the club, Apollonia tells a waitress, Jill, that she's a singer and dancer looking for work. Jill is played by singer Jill Jones, who provided backup vocals for Prince's 1999 album. In the crowd, Apollonia is transfixed by the Kid on stage, as who wouldn't be. At the conclusion of the Revolution set, The Time take the stage and launch into Jungle Love. In the crowd, the Kid spots Apollonia and is clearly intrigued by her, but is much too cool to say anything. Dressed in his fabulous purple satin coat, the Kid drives home on his purple motorcycle and overhears his parents arguing violently. The Kid rushes in to pull his father away from his mother and gets slapped and shoved to the floor. His mother is played by Greek actress Olga Karlatos, while his father is played by Clarence Williams III, famous for playing super cool undercover detective Link on The Mod Squad. Morris chats with the owner of the First Avenue Club, Billy, played by concert promoter Billy Sparks, who, like most people in this film, was one of Prince's close friends in real life. Morris urges Billy to fire The Revolution due to the Kid's unreliability. They talk about the Kid's father, a once talented musician who ruined his career through his destructive behavior. Morris suggests hiring a girl group, which he himself will create and produce, to replace The Revolution. At the club, Jill gives the Kid a tape with a song written by 2 members of The Revolution: guitarist Wendy, played by Wendy Melvoin, and keyboardist Lisa, played by Lisa Coleman. Wendy and Lisa, who at that time were a real-life couple as well as bandmates, are now known as the music duo Wendy and Lisa. Among their other credits, they composed the theme music and score for the NBC BBC series Heroes. At a rehearsal space, Morris auditions dancers for his prospective girl group. Afterward, he complains to Jerome that the dancers weren't what he was looking for. He was intrigued by Apollonia at the club, and he decides she'd be perfect for his girl group. Morris and Jerome are interrupted by an irate woman, played by Sandra Clare Gershman, who chews Morris out for standing her up the previous night. Jerome scoops her up and drops her in a dumpster. And believe it or not, this is not the most wildly misogynistic thing that will happen in this film. The kid approaches Apollonia and flirts with her a bit. He takes her on the back of his motorcycle for a drive into the Minnesota countryside while Take Me With You plays. They stop by a lake and chat. Originally from New Orleans, Apollonia came to Minneapolis specifically to break into the music business. First Avenue looks like a great club, but my mind hitches a little bit at the idea of Minneapolis being a better place to launch a music career than New Orleans. The kid tells her he won't help her get her big break because she'll never be able to pass his initiation, purifying herself by swimming in the waters of Lake Minnetonka. Apollonia promptly strips off all her clothes and jumps in the freezing lake. Apparently the lake was literally freezing during filming. On her first take, Apollonia broke through a layer of thin ice and ended up developing hypothermia. Afterward, the kid informs her that the lake she just jumped into is not Lake Minnetonka. While she freezes, he pretends to drive off without her. When he finally lets her on the back of his bike, he orders her not to get his seat wet. This is around the time it begins to dawn on everyone in the theater that Prince would be absolutely impossible to date. At the club, the third house band, the Modern Airs, perform their single, Modern Air. Backstage in the Revolution's dressing room, Wendy and Lisa ask the kid if he's listened to their song yet. He hasn't, and indeed seems scornful of the very idea, which annoys Wendy and Lisa. Left alone, the kid does a sad little ventriloquist act with a sad little monkey toy about how he doesn't need anyone but himself. He puts in Wendy and Lisa's tape and plays the opening chords of their song, which turns out to be an unfinished version of the title track, Purple Rain. He stops listening after a few bars because their set's about to begin. On the club floor, Morris tries to recruit Apollonia by wooing her with expensive champagne and cheesy pickup lines. Always eager to help out his boss, Jerome presents Morris with a pair of martini glasses for the champagne. Nothing in this film is funnier than the way Morris and Apollonia keep sipping champagne out of martini glasses for the rest of this scene. The Revolution take the stage and perform The Beautiful Ones, which ends with the kid lying on his back on the stage and writhing around while screaming into his microphone, because Prince was an absolute master of full-body performances. Afterward, Apollonia takes off with the kid. They end up outside his house, peeking in through the window as the kid's parents get it on the couch. They climb in through another window into his bedroom, which is decorated exactly how you would expect Prince's bedroom to be decorated, i.e. with theatrical masks, porcelain clown dolls, a winged horse statuette, and a closet inexplicably filled with glassware. They end up having artistic sex. At the First Avenue, Wendy and Lisa again try to interest the kid in their song, and he flat out tells them he's not going to play their music. Morris asks Apollonia to join his girl group. She initially refuses, claiming the kid is going to help her with her career. Morris bursts into delighted laughter and informs her that the kid has never done anything to help anyone else in his life, which totally tracks with everything we've seen in this film thus far. While the bulk of the film was shot in Minneapolis, this was filmed on the sidewalk in downtown Los Angeles' Skid Row. True crime buffs might note the Cecil Hotel in the background, site of the mysterious death of Elisa Lam, which was the subject of a recent Netflix documentary. Apollonia pawns her jewelry to buy a nice guitar for the kid, and he gives her one of his earrings in return. When she tells him she's decided to join Morris's group, he slaps her so hard she stumbles back and falls to the floor. When Doves Cry, which held the top spot on the Billboard charts for 5 weeks in 1984, plays while the kid moodily drives around on his motorcycle while thinking of Apollonia. At the club, the Revolution perform Computer Blue. Upon spotting Apollonia with Morris, the kid then sings the joyously filthy song Darling Nikki, which seems to be pretty blatantly and specifically about getting nasty with Apollonia. Fun fact, Darling Nikki is the song that directly inspired Tipper Gore's prolonged campaign against vulgarity in pop music, which led to the parental advisory label being placed on albums. As the kid passionately humps the stage, a humiliated Apollonia runs out of the club. The kid throws a fit in his dressing room. Billy yells at him to keep his personal affairs off the stage, which seems reasonable. Billy tells the kid he's turning into his old man, i.e. a flaky and temperamental waste of talent. The following night, Morris's new group, Apollonia 6, performs Sex Shooter while working some strung lingerie game as the kid watches moodily from the back of the room. After the show, Apollonia and Morris drunkenly snuggle and stagger down an alley. The kid zips down the alley on his motorcycle and physically knocks Morris down, which is absolutely nuts, and then he orders Apollonia to hop on his bike. They speed through the night and make out under the train tracks. The kid yells at Apollonia for getting drunk and shoves her to the ground. He's about to punch her when he suddenly seems to realize he's acting like a psycho. Apollonia rips off the earring he gave her and throws it away. The kid arrives home just as his father shoots himself in the head in an attempted suicide. The paramedics come and haul his father off, alive but in bad shape. Alone at home, the kid has a breakdown where he smashes a bunch of jars of, I don't know, artisanal preserves or something. He discovers a box of sheet music, which he realizes are his father's compositions. While playing Wendy and Lisa's tape, the kid sits down at the piano and begins working with their composition. At the club, the Time take the stage and launch into the glorious goofiness of The Bird, while the audience members flap their arms in unison. It is physically impossible to listen to The Bird without flapping your arms whenever Morris squawks. Just try it. You'll discover I'm right. Afterward, the Revolution takes the stage, where the kid dedicates the next song to his father. He gives credit for authorship to Wendy and Lisa before launching into an impassioned rendition of Purple Rain. After the show, the kid leaves the stage to thunderous applause. Backstage, he runs into a teary-eyed Apollonia, who kisses him gently before he returns for an encore. The Revolution perform I Would Die for You and Baby I'm a Star over a montage of scenes of the kid visiting his father in the hospital and sorting through his father's compositions. At his home, he gives Apollonia the earring that matches the one she threw away, and they kiss. Purple Rain is the rare film that manages to be extremely cool and extremely corny in equal doses. No one watches Purple Rain for the story, which is pretty skeletal. Though there's something poignant about watching the kid's realization that he's turning into his father, whose brilliance was suffocated by his violent, selfish, and self-destructive nature. The dialogue in Purple Rain is often awkward, and there are some odd line delivery choices throughout the film by multiple performers. Though I will not hear a word against Morris Day and Jerome Benton, who are hilarious together and have crackerjack comic timing, and who manage to turn this very solemn film into a screwball comedy whenever they're on screen. Purple Rain tries hard to grapple with weighty issues, like the lingering effects of intimate partner violence, and living with the poisonous legacy of an abusive parent. While it might be well-intentioned, the execution's clumsy. It's jarring to see the kid's abusive treatment of Apollonia, even though it's clear the film wants to make the point that this is the abhorrent legacy of his father, which the kid is doomed to inherit if he doesn't get his act together. These days, a film backed by a Hollywood studio would find a different way to get that point across than by showing the protagonist slapping around his love interest. Particularly since there's no indication he's going to seek treatment or make amends for his behavior, apart from trying really hard not to do it again, which isn't how that works. This makes Purple Rain the rare Hollywood film where viewers find themselves actively disappointed when the romantic leads reconcile at the end. Ideally, the film would have ended with Wendy and Lisa taking Apollonia out for nachos and margaritas while gently pointing out all the ways the kid is an absolutely atrocious boyfriend for her. During his life, Prince was one of those celebrities who had such a high and rarefied level of fame that the vast distance between his public and private personas makes it impossible to gain a sense of who he really was. While it's well known that Purple Rain is at least somewhat biographical, I have absolutely no idea how close in terms of personality or behavior the kid, as depicted in Purple Rain, is to Prince Rogers Nelson, born June 7th, 1958, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and that's fine. It's more rewarding to watch Purple Rain if you just set aside all the baggage that comes along with the artist formerly known as Prince and just focus on the kid as a fictional creation. In Purple Rain, the kid is intensely charismatic, kind of a weirdo, clearly a genius, crazy talented, and a big old jerk. This works well for the film and makes him an interesting character even when the script lets him down. Setting the awkwardness of the script and the film's regressive sexual politics aside, there are two big reasons to watch Purple Rain. First and foremost are the performances, which, whether we're talking about The Revolution, The Modern Heirs, Apollonia 6, or The Time, are a great deal of fun. Coming in second are the outfits. The costumes are the work of designers Louis Wells, Terry Vaughan, and Marie France, and whether we're talking about Prince's frills or Morris's flash, they are spectacular. Purple Rain is a kinetic, colorful visual delight with a soundtrack to match. Next time we are turning it all the way up to 11, when we go on the road with one of England's loudest bands in Rob Reiner's rock mockumentary This Is Spinal Tap. Thank you for joining me. I will meet you back here then.